You're tuned into the show that informs, entertains, inspires, and promotes motorsports everywhere.
Welcome to Winning Wednesday on Northwest Racing Report.
Tonight's show is brought to you by
Miller Kitchen and Bath, Bailey General Contracting, Myers Woodcovering, Welch's Gun Shop, and Flaming Pig Barbecue.
Turn that down, Gibber. And by the Wenatchee Valley Super Oval. And by Leonard Evans, Used Car Superstore. And by Product41.com, Atomic Screen Printing. And by BLG, Blue Line Graphics. Be unique, stand out, get noticed. www.blg.blue. And now, back to your horsepower performance hosts, Terry Bridges and Glenn Lippy Tower. Oh, what's going on, racers? Yeah, Gib, you're going to have to turn that down. I know you probably want to hear it, but you're probably going to have to turn that because it'll backfeed through the system. What is going on? I'm your horsepower performance host, Terry Bridges, and we got a cool show for you tonight. The history of karting, part 2. What up, Chris Gibb? Oh, I got to play this for Gibb.
What's up, race fans? This is the real deal, Chris Gibb, and you're listening to the Northwest Race Report.
Heck yeah, baby. We are here. We got the coolest guest on the planet with us tonight. I mean, this guy is stoked to be here. I'm so stoked to have him. Welcome to the show, the caster master, the wizard, Mr. Jason Gibb. What is going on, Jason?
How's it going, guys?
Dude, it's so cool to have you here, man. This is pretty awesome. I've been looking forward to this all week.
It's like I have too. I mean, I think having been around the sport a long time, seen a lot of stuff. It's kind of looking forward to share some of the history of the sport. People have been there. People that didn't know about some of the stuff back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and talking about the history of the sport.
Dude, let's see who checked in. We got David Montoya, John Peterson. We got the loader, Jeff Eden, in the house. Keith Marshall, Pete Gresh, Don Kravitz, Brian Rushing, Todd Connell, Maurice the Racer X Shaver, James Connolly, Garth Mulkey, Josh Featherstone. Dude, we're getting them all, baby. Yes, Keith Marshall says spray paint. I love it. Off season, you gotta love it. Hey, Mr. Walden, what's going on? Daryl Kelso. Do you know who Wayne Walden is, Jason?
No, I don't.
He is the former promoter of Hermiston Speedway or Hermiston Raceway. Tri-City Raceway, and he's the current. He helps out his son Greg at Hermiston Raceway.
Well, that sounds awesome,
dude. I know you got them all. See, you're bringing them all in, man.
I don't know. We'll see.
So we went with Phil Fowl last week. We kind of got up from 58. We kind of touched some bases. It got a little crazy, but we got up to the 70s. So tonight, what we're going to do is we got the wizard here, the caster master. He's going to bring us up to date from like probably 75, 76 on up to the current. We'll get as far as we can. We know we'll probably have a part 2 next week. So, because it's going to get good. First of all, Jason, how in the heck did you get the name Caster Master?
Well, that's something that Ralph Woodard's mechanic Bob Pulte, who had a lot of success to do with Ralph's career, and what ended up happening was my first year at Tulsa, when we had adjustable caster on that first Legend car, we ended actually running 32 degrees on the right front and 28 on the left, and it was all you could do to hang on to the thing. And so I remember him just pinging me the whole weekend about, "You big wuss, hang on to this thing. You're going to win." And so he kind of gave me a hard time that weekend, but that's okay. Bob's an awesome guy and a fantastic wrench.
That's awesome. Eric Johnson says Turbo Terry. I haven't heard that one before. That's kind of cool. Welcome, everybody. We got our special guest tonight, Mr. Jason Gibb, with us, and we're going to be covering quite a bit of history. So Gibber, what do you got first on your list?
Well, before we get going, one of the things I want to bring up is I got to give a big shout out to one of the guys I raced with for a long time, Mr. Jamie Farrell. Jamie's going through a really, really, really tough time with a big battle of cancer. And him and I had some epic battles from the late 90s into the 2000s. And he's a great racer. He's one of the best that ever sat in the seat of a speedway cart. And he's a good friend. And I just want to say, hang in there, buddy.
Absolutely, man. That's what we, Gibb, and this goes not only for carts, but, midgets and stock cars, and it doesn't matter what we're racing. I mean, would you agree, right? Once you're in the racing family, you're kind of in the racing family. And so when we lose somebody or somebody's sick or we need prayers, it goes to everybody. It's not just everybody kind of ignores the genre. Don't you think that's awesome?
Well, I think you just need to share, right? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, even though you might have battled on the racetrack for all those years, it's still, okay to be friends outside the track and have a beer or whatever. I mean, it's not kill or be killed.
Absolutely. And sometimes it does get a little carried away, but
well, for sure. Well, we've all gotten carried away, and me included.
Oh no, not you, Gibb.
Oh yeah.
So
I've had my day.
Here's what I noticed. I was some of your posts last week. I was looking at some of the covers because you said you broke out. Oh, Chris Hager in the house. What's going on, Chris? You know what? I had no idea that you. Now I don't know. Was it Formula Ford or some sort of? It was like a road race Indy type car, Indy Lights. I don't know what it was, but I never knew you did that.
Yeah. So from not too long after high school to 97 or whatever it was, I worked on a bunch of different professional race car teams. And I didn't work on that. That was an Indy car at Dan Gurney's when I worked at Gurney's. I was working on the Toyota stuff. But the reason I think the picture is cool is because my dad's van actually is in the background, and I just happened to drive my dad's van to work that day. And I got a buddy that's in the picture there, Keith Colesbeck. He's leaning on a jack handle after probably putting in 3 days straight to get that car ready to go to the first race of the year. So, we had a lot of fun doing that for a long time. Learned a lot. Worked for Phil Remington, who was in Ford versus Ferrari. Phil was probably the greatest fabricator that ever walked the face of the earth. Worked for Gurney and Shelby for years, and he was great mentor. He told you how to do it once, and you better do it the way he told you, kind of like in the movie.
Yeah. No patience.
Well, you just do as you're told, and you'll learn a lot real quick.
So, man, I mean, to bring everybody up to speed, I mean, anybody who's been in karting on the speedway side knows that. I mean, and you're gonna go, but I mean, you're considered one of the speedway gurus. I mean, I don't, you can fight me on it. You can say, oh, geez, that's really nice and all that. But, man, when you talk speedway, yes, you talk Ralph Woodard. Yes, you talk, some other speedway guys, Fow and all that. But your name is one of the first ones that's on that list. Oh, man, Jason Gibb, I mean, one of the best speedway guys that, So tell us a little bit what brought this all on?
Well, it's kind of lucky, I mean, in a lot of ways, you start out racing karts with your dad, and you're trying to do everything you can. And, I got lucky and got hooked up with some really good people early on. Getting a ride with Doug Henline on the Proline factory team back in the day was, that was a cream of the crop ride, and and you couldn't ask for any better. I mean, Doug had a way of asking questions to you to make you. He never made you feel stupid. He really taught you a lot about chassis setup, and he just knew a lot about the dynamics of what a kart was supposed to do. And I got to give it out. And on the chassis side of it, he had a huge part of me really kind of really starting to click on. You need to really be way more in touch with what the handling of the kart is really number one. And then on the tuning side, I got to give a big shout out to Mike Manning. Once I got on his power plant stuff in the mid '80s, it made all the difference in the world. And he was so committed to the program that we had with Proline at the time. It was absolutely, I used to drive from Long Beach, California, all the way to Northridge, California, every single Wednesday to get the motor freshened up and drive home 20 times a year.
Wow.
every week, and then be at work at 6:00 in the morning on Thursday, and then I worked 410s at the time, and then you'd go racing Friday night at Ventura. I mean, he was so dedicated to it, and he really, really made a huge, huge difference from the tuning side of it, and just his belief in, me being behind the wheel was awesome. I mean, and you can't really take anything away from him. I mean, at that point in time, it just made such a huge difference on who you were and how dedicated you needed to be to the sport. And the more I was into it, the more, Doug and Mike were into it, and it just worked, and it made, we had a lot of luck and won a lot of races then with those guys. And,
wow, that's cool. Derek Wallace says, I remember buying major kart tires from the Gibbs when I was like 12.
Yeah, that's me and my brother Chris sold some major tires. Chris is probably going to chime in and say something here. I think it was 92, 93. We were doing a bit of the major thing out of my shop in Dana Point in California. Chris kind of got the thing rolling a little bit, and then he was getting a bunch of road race tires from Don Booz from Dominator, and we just started selling the shit out of some of that stuff, and stuff worked pretty good. We sold quite a bit of that stuff in California at the time.
Cool. David Dean, Mike Hunter, Nick Ben from South Sound, Mike Clausen, and the legend himself, Phil Fow, in the house. So
wow, Mike Clausen and Phil Fow. I better get my shit right tonight.
Hey, man. So let me ask you. I know we didn't talk about this afternoon, but who's better, you or Chris?
Oh, we both got our strong suits. That's for sure. I definitely give the nod to Chris in a twin. He was always a better driver than me in a duel. The open stuff and the super stock stuff was kind of more of my jam. I did pretty decent in the Yamaha stuff now and then, but the super stock stuff and the open stuff was more my thing. But he was definitely a better driver in a twin than me for sure.
Mike Clausen said, "Gibber." I think that's cool, man.
I had a few battles with him.
Did you?
Well, yeah.
That's awesome. Isn't it cool? I mean, we look back when you were in the heat of your career, and you drove for a lot of years, and you were paid to drive. But isn't it cool now, kind of looking back and just all the? I mean, you kind of forget. I mean, you don't forget the race and stuff, but the things that stand out now are the struggles, right? The things like all the people you met, all the great people, all the friendships that you made throughout those many years when you were really doing your thing. It's just cool kind of to look back on that now and say, wow, man, what a great friendship I had. Didn't realize it was that good. You know what I mean?
I think to me, I always wanted the respect for what you did. You can, to me, it was like, you didn't have to like me. You didn't have to like how I drove. You didn't have to like the brand of cart or the engine builder. But at the end of the day, what my actions were, what my results were, I just wanted that respect. And that went pretty much the whole career. What you did was like, okay, he's a decent shoe, or he was a pile today. I kicked his ass, and whatever it may be. There was a bunch of us there was a fair amount of us that traveled to the Midwest from California. And one of the things that I will say about racing in the Midwest that was really good is we were pretty much usually, it was open arms. We like to race. Those guys like to see us come back there, like to race with us. I still have a lot of friends in the Midwest today, all karting. And it was a lot of fun. And, I could go on about racing in the Midwest compared to the West Coast. It's very, very, very different for those that have done it. It's not even close. Same as like racing sprint cars on the West Coast and going to the Midwest. It's night and day different. It's like a different planet altogether.
So let's kind of touch on that. What in your mind, because I know you're not saying there's not good racers out here, but what?
No, not at all.
What is that difference? What makes it that different breed of cat back there in the Midwest?
Well, it's not so much the people as it was the surface of the racetracks, right? So when the first time I went back to the Midwest was in 80. Well, we'd been back there in 79 to Texas, but Texas, that was its own kind of animal. But we went back there the first time in 83 because the stuff that ran in 80, 81, 82, those were still kind of heavy racetracks. So they didn't really fall into this category. But once you went to Oskaloosa, to Speedway Jimmy's, these tracks got what I would call wet slick, really shiny, no grip.
Right, you could see the bottom of the go-kart on the racetrack.
Finish on the racetrack. They don't take rubber, and there is zero grip. So you had to like really start getting creative to how to get this car hooked up. And the more that you ran on that stuff, and then came home and ran, and you just got better with the chassis setup stuff. Because when you run on a heavy racetrack all the time, you got grip, and so you're looking to unhook the car most of the time, and you're not looking to get the thing hooked up. And so you learn so much more about the chassis and what dynamically you need to do at the front end and in the back of the car and VC and all that fun stuff that comes along with it, where you don't really learn that. It's a different thing. I mean, everybody's kind of fast when the track's heavy. When the track gets slick, the guys that are really good with the chassis setup stuff, that was very prevalent in 83, 86, 87, 92. I mean, if you had to be good in those moments. I mean, even a perfect example was, and Clausen's going to laugh, and so is my brother, if John Crow's on. At Spring Run Speedway in Columbus Junction, Iowa, if you had any heat in the tires, I mean any, the car would push or get loose. The tires needed to be stone cold for the whole race. And so you were constantly trying to adjust the car to take the heat out of the tires.
Wow.
True story.
You know, that and that kind of goes against what people are trying to do nowadays, right?
It's not even, it's apples to oranges.
Yeah. So, let's make one thing clear. There was no prep back then either, was there?
I mean, in the 90s, actually in 87, there was prep. We ran 5-inch Dunlops with 3 pounds of air on the right and 2 pounds on the left. But there was some prep. I don't remember what we used. If Greg Schomburg chimes in here tonight, maybe he'll remember what it was. We had some prep that we used in 87. I don't remember exactly what it was. I pinged BJ Carter earlier. Maybe he'll sign in. It was something, but I mean, it was kind of, everybody was kind of playing with the same shit. It wasn't anything like it was today. It was all homebrew stuff.
Right. Well, Mike Clausen says, don't forget our 15-pound right rear tire pressure rules we had.
Right. So there was at Spring Run, there was a 15-pound tire rule and a half-inch ground clearance. And that's what made it super racy. I mean, super racy.
So you don't even
and it worked.
You don't even hear that now. I mean, you might in the cage karts where they say, you got to have a 55 or a hard tire on the right rear, but nobody talks about ride heights or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, not like in a rule.
No, I mean, it was, and I would say, I mean, from any of the Midwest guys that chime in tonight, that, Spring Run and Oskaloosa were the two premier racetracks in the Midwest at the time. They had the most Grand Nationals, and they were probably producing some of the best drivers in the country at the time. And because they were both very, very, very difficult to be fast at. And if you were fast at one of them, then you should be proud of what you accomplished, because it was not easy.
Well, your brother says, go ahead. Your brother says diesel fuel and ATF was the prep.
I don't know if that was it in 87, but at Spring, when we were playing around in Carlsbad and stuff, I mean, that's what we were doing. We had, we'd have a 15-gallon drum where you'd have diesel fuel and automatic transmission fluid. You just submerge the tires 100% in there and put a dumbbell on top to keep the tires in the stuff. I mean, it worked, but it was pretty hillbilly at the time. So it definitely worked.
So when you came back to run, what was it, BK 9 or 10?
Whatever, 2015.
Yeah. So were you amazed at the difference in tire science when you came back?
Well, for me, I was pretty lucky. When I started sniffing around wanting to go, I purposely try to stay away from this stuff because I don't need to get poked in the arm with the needle to go racing again most of the time. So I'd gone to a sprint car and modified a late model race in Charlotte. And I felt the needle go in, but hey, I can still do this.
Yeah.
So I started sniffing around a little bit, and I was very lucky enough that I still had good relationship with a lot of people I had raced for, and Kermit was willing to donate a motor, and I got a car, and Chris Buller said he'd do the tires, and so Greg was willing to hop on a plane and fly out here and help tune. And so, I mean, I from the tire side of things, I mean, I pretty much follow what Chris Buller would normally do. We had some other stuff that I had in my bag from before and what my brother had done, that we'd done some stuff. And I mean, it all worked out pretty good. I mean, we were heading pretty good both weeks, got a second and a third after not running anything for 10 years. But it's a lot of work. And I mean, I don't want to get on this and spend too much time on this, but I think the tire thing has kind of wrecked it, in my opinion. It makes it a little more too complicated than it really needs to be for the average guy.
We're in 100% agreement there, but you're right. I mean, that's something that's never going to go away. It's something that's here to stay. So, it's one of those things you just kind of, live with it or die from it. So, but
one of the things I wanted to do
go ahead.
little talking about was, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I did a little bit of math, and I was looking through everybody that raced IKF Nationals from 2020 all the way back to 76, the first year. And of the 44 years of IKF Speedway, everybody that raced on the West Coast, 33 people have won a Duffy. That's it. In 44 years, only 33 people have won a Duffy. Only 11 have won in the Midwest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a pretty. I didn't know that till I started digging up all these Carter Newses, and I thought that was kind of a interesting thing. Another one that was pretty cool is Doug Fleming's son, Colin Fleming, is the only junior in the history of the sport to ever win 2 Duffys in every single division as a junior. That's pretty rad.
Dude, that's more than rad.
That's pretty rad. And then there's only 4 people from the West Coast that have 2 Duffys. 1 has 3, 2 has 4, 1 has 6.
Wow.
And the rest all have 1. Yeah, I mean, it just tells you how hard it was in the Midwest. I'm not trying to make the Midwest sound like it's pretty crazy, but I mean, as Clausen will probably chime in and say, it was, and my brother, it was pretty hard. I mean, it was a lot different, and there was so many guys when you went back there. It was just, when I'm looking at my notes, like in '83, when Dale Durbin and John Maynard were the factory pro line guys at the time, and Durbin went back there and won 2 at Oskaloosa in '83. That was the biggest IKF National ever, and it was 600 and some odd entries at that point in time, and he won both Superstock classes. I think it was both Superstock, and that following year, Maynard won 150 Open at Spring Run. I mean, back then, winning in the Midwest, being from California, was just kind of unheard of the West Coast at all.
Right. Well, going back to my question before, so it was more the racetracks that made the Midwest so tough, right? I mean, it was just the surface of the racetrack.
Yeah, the surface of the racetrack and how they prepped them. Bob Utter at Spring Run would put soap in the water just because he didn't want anybody using prep, and the prep didn't. If you tried prepping at his track, it didn't work. So it just didn't matter what you put on for prep; it did not work. I mean, it looked like. I mean, a couple times I was there, and people did try to prep. It looked like someone put a top fuel dragster out, and then it would just be there'd be these greasy stripes all over the racetrack. It didn't work. So
that's so awesome. So.
Maybe they should do that at Salem.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So, I mean, I want to touch on some of your big accomplishments back there, but shoot, now I'm so excited I forgot what I was going to say. But so back there thinking, okay, let's just take. Okay, I'm just going to go there because it's on my mind now. So. You've run some big stuff back there. The drillers back there. Did you guys qualify and then have to race your way in, kind of like you do at the BK, or was it when you qualified, you were on pole for the first heat, and then they invert everybody for the second heat, and then it's straight up on the third?
No, Tulsa is actually way more difficult than that. So that you had a practice day where you probably get about 4 rounds of practice, maybe 5 to 8 laps, and then practice happened one day, the heats were another, and the mains would be, sometimes the main would be a following day, sometimes the mains would be the same day as the heats. You ran one heat race at Tulsa, one. So let's say there's 5 heat races, and I'm in heat 1, you're in 2. If I win heat 1, I'm on the pole for the main event. Heat 2 off pole, heat 3, second row inside, and so on all the way down. That's how Tulsa worked. So the heat race was absolutely pivotal. I mean, if you were in the 5th heat and you won, the best you were going to start was 5th. If you got second, you were Outback Steakhouse just getting second. So the heat race was everything at Tulsa. You had to be perfect for 10 laps or 8 laps, whatever it was. I think it was 10 in that heat race. We would have special setups that would just go 10 laps. And that's all the thing needed to hit on the first lap and go for 10 laps. Because if you had a setup that was going to take 10 laps or 5 laps to get going, you just got pushed and shoved out of the way and you got pushed to the back, and now you're in the B or the C main. So it was crucial that you were really, really good for 10 laps. And then you had to have a main event setup, which was completely different.
But you had to be good qualifying, though, then, too, to get into that
There
first
was no
heat,
qualifying.
right?
No qualifying. You practiced. It was a P-pick, and you went straight to the heats. There was no time in.
So if you were – now, refresh me. If you were in the first heat and you won it?
You're on the pole.
But it's all off your P-pick. So what if you got a crappy P-pick?
Welcome to Tulsa.
Oh, man. Wow.
That's why I'm saying it had to be so good. There was a couple times where I won the heat from 10th, where I literally started dead last, but we had such a good setup on the car. A lot of that was due to Ralph, to be honest, in the beginning, because he'd done so good there earlier that we needed to go. We needed something that was going to go and go right now. And you had to be. I mean, if you thought you were going to go by the guy, you better make you know. And Tulsa was green, white, checker. There wasn't. I don't think I ever saw a black flag there, to be clear.
Wow. Yeah, but you had. I mean, guys respected guys back then, though, too, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, there was, but there was also some stuff. I mean, there was one year where I was running second, and I got taken out by a lap car. Me and the leader running 1-2. I mean, kind of painful. I mean,
yeah, really painful. So now, you only ran one heat race then, right? Right.
One heat race at Tulsa. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really hardcore.
So
the good thing about it, though, it's like no one. I mean, if you had notes from the previous year and knew someone that ran that was willing to share your notes, it was one thing. But guys that would try to show up that had never been there without any notes, I don't care how good they were at home, they struggled. It wasn't easy. I mean, Ralph had some really good notes for me the first year we got there, and we were lucky enough to get one the first year. And after that, it was, we won 2 the second year, and all the kind of the funny thing was we won 2 the second year. Then went to the ITF Nationals thinking our shit didn't stink, and Jamie Farrell put a royal ass whipping on me for 5 days straight, which I deserved.
Well, Mike Clausen says we had Ralph Woodard, Chad Waller, Josh Walker, Jamie Farrell, BJ Carter, etc., racing each other 25 nights a summer.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. It was when you went back there. I mean, when you went back there to race, it just didn't. It was. I remember doing some races at Topeka where it was like it was just crazy how many people were there that were good, and there was money to be had, right? I mean, I remember doing a race at Topeka that paid, I don't know, it was $500, $1,000 to win for open in Yamaha, and me and Greg Schomburg walked out of there with whatever it was, $1,000 or $2,000 that night. And I'd only been there a couple times, and it was super slick, and we got it hooked up and we're gone. And those guys, all those guys back there that were heavy into the 2-stroke thing at the time there wasn't a bunch of jokers. They were all fast, and any of them could have win on a regular basis.
Dude, that's insane. Now, were you guys? I mean, were you guys on slicks back there most of the time?
Yeah, always.
Always. So where does your brother get this love for treads and tear-offs?
Well, the thing is like I can go back to, I'm going to talk a little bit about Ventura. So a lot of the guys in the Midwest, they can talk about Oski or they can talk about Spring Run. I got to I was one of the few that got to do both. One of the things was like on the West Coast from like 85 to, I can go back to earlier, but I'll just shorten it up, 85 to like 88. Ventura was the place to race. It was one class, Yamaha, 345 pounds, and we would get anywhere from a low of 20 to a high of maybe 60 carts on a Friday night, 20 times a year. And
good night.
You name it. Yeah. Paige Jones, PJ Jones, Tom Niels, Kurt Burris, Eric Burris, my brother, Aaron Lauer, Joe Granatelli, Tom Niels. The list went on and on and on. The Pedregon brothers, Dennis Eckert, Jim Hall. The list just goes on and on forever. Of who would race there on a Friday night.
Dude, do you realize some of the names you just said?
Yeah, and I apologize if I'm forgetting any of them because, Manning, Ito, and before it was Yamaha, a friend of my dad's, Dennis Carlson, ruled that place when it was Reed and Rotaries with a rotary valve Pirella. I think he won like 70 or 80 some odd percent of the races the one year, just dominating that place.
And now this is in California, right? Ventura, California?
Ventura Raceway.
Okay.
Yep, and we used to race with the TQ midgets, and you go out and you get 4 laps of practice, or 5 laps maybe, and then you qualified and you ran 10-lap heat and a 20-lap feature. And at the end of the year, they used to have this race called the Western States Dirt Track Championship, and it used to be 50 laps, and they cut it down to 25. And to be clear, Ventura got rough, and it was a man's racetrack because I can remember cutting my hands on the old steel spoke steering wheel, and I thought I was getting water off a chain oiler from a lap car in front of me when I was going by him. And actually, it was the blood off my hand hitting my visor.
Dude, Ronnie Cox says, I hear that. 345 pounds, LOL. Not now. It's like 520.
Yeah.
Man, dude.
Yeah, and the thing with Ventura, really, I can't emphasize enough is like when you got guys that are at like super high level, like when Tom Niels first started there, he didn't make the A main. And Tom Niels is one of the greatest road race sprint racers that's ever lived, an engine builder. He's phenomenal, and the battles that went on there, like usually the top 10 guys, because in timing would be within a tenth of a second. So think about that for a minute. If you're 0.2 off, you're literally not even going to make the show. So if you were 0.5 off, you were starting 10th. So in the whole process of racing at Ventura was so cool, and it taught you to be so dialed. Every week, motor was fresh clutch, and you were game on. RLV was building pipes just for Ventura. It was as hardcore as it got. There was Proline guys, there was Dominator guys, there was guys on MX. Niels was taking care of the Jones boys.
Now, did any of the MX guys run? Did Ronnie run or Paleo?
I never
those
saw
guys?
Ron. No, I saw Nelson came down and ran him. I had a good battle with him. I think it was 85 at the Western States Dirt Track race. But it was one of those years where I wasn't running that good, and he wasn't running that good because that was his first time there. And I don't care who you are, the first time at Ventura, you got your ass kicked. My first time there, I didn't make this. I went through the B main and at one of the Western States races and finished like 8th or 10th or some shit. I got smoked. That's how tough it was. Even I can go one step further. I see Larry Killen's on, and he can vouch for Scott Evans. Scott Evans came out, and he's a great street racer, dirt racer, sprint racer that drove for Proline out of the Midwest. And he came out for the IKF Nationals, and then he did the sprint race, and he came up to Ventura to do the dirt race, and he didn't make the main. This guy was a Grand National champion. He didn't even make the show. That's how hard Ventura was. And it was heavy. You were going through a pack plus of tear-offs. That's just the way it was. And everybody was close.
So that's where the treads and tear-offs comes from.
It was great racing, man. I'll tell you. And it was some of the best racing. I talked with Kurt Burris a little bit today before the show, and I mean, him and I are both on the same page. It was some of the best racing I'd ever done. I mean, it was so hard and so difficult every week. It was just fun, man. I mean, it made you a better racer all the way around. You learned a lot. And I mean, again, help from Manning and Proline, Doug Henline at the time, it made all the difference for me.
Well, now, I mean, I remember Kurt as a pretty damn good sprinter, but he must have been a stud speedway guy too, huh?
Yeah, him and I kind of started. He started like about a year before me. I think we was talking today. His first race was 81 or 82. I started in 82, and when we were doing Ascot, I mean, my first year in juniors was Kurt Burris, Derek Burris, Darren Law, who went on to sports car fame, Dwayne Kendall, who was Bob Kendall's son, who was multi-time national champion on the dirt himself. And the names just went on and on of all these guys that we raced in juniors. It was absolutely brutal. I mean, and so your learning curve was like, if you just thought you're going to go out and get a go-kart and go be competitive. I mean, I didn't win a main event till 4 years in from my first race.
Wow.
Because you're racing against guys that, just had been doing it a while, and you just kind of had to suck it up. And, that's just the way it was, but it was fun racing against those guys. For sure. Especially Kurt. Him and I had some great races. I got a great shot on my Facebook site of him and I racing one night at Ventura. He got a rotary valve Corsair and I'm my Yamaha. And it was good times. It was
a rotary valve Corsair and a Yamaha. There should have been no contest. I'm just kidding.
I kicked his ass that night.
Oh boy, I'm gonna be in for it now. I think it's cool, man. That's one of the things. I don't know about you, but that's one of the things that and I'm not trying to be negative or anything, but that's one of the things I don't like. Well, Speedway's not so bad anymore, but Sprint, all this same engine stuff, equality kind of stuff. That's for me, that's one of the things that I remember the most about karting back in the day was some guys love Perillas, some guys love Comets, some guys like Corsairs, some guys like BMs and Atlases and Readers, and and everybody had their own reason why they ran with. I like the power band of this. I think the port timing's better here. I think but that was what the beauty of karting was. There was all this vast array of different motors and different combos, and it wasn't all just monkey see, monkey do, right? Everybody kind of had their own reason for why they ran what they ran. I think that's missing now. That's one of the things I miss the most is that variety. Like, wow, look at Gibb. He's got a Yamaha on here, and he's running against, rotary valve Comets and Corsairs. And, I mean, back in the day, I remember basically, now Yamahas were good, but if you had a good running Reader rotary, it was, dude.
Well, to be clear, on the Reed and Rotary nights when we did run that stuff at Ventura, there was a lot of people that pulled that stuff out. But the thing was, for me, is most of the time I just ran a Yamaha because we had been working on more and more chassis stuff and just getting the thing to the point where it was so free that we had just, most of the time I'm pretty sure I ran less gear than everybody. Most everybody ran a 976, 977. We were running most of the time cats out of the bag. A million years later, we would be in the 74, 70, 73 range. And, we just had just tons of mile an hour at the end of the straightaway. And that was always where we were really good. And again, Henline poking at me on the setup stuff along with my dad and Manning, don't get it too hot. There was just a ton of guys that were good, and it just upped your game, and it just, after a while, you just realize because of racing against Kurt and Lee Hatch and my brother and, all those guys, it just made you better. If you wanted to run up front, you had to do a lot of work during the week.
Mm-hmm.
There was some weeks later on where we were lucky enough where we would have Ventura ran Friday night, Carlsbad ran Saturday, and South Bay Stadium would run Sunday. So I had a car that I would just take to Ventura. I wouldn't take it anywhere else. We'd run Ventura Friday night, come home, unload that, wash it, clean it up, and then have another car ready to load up. And then we'd go to Carlsbad Saturday night, run there, and then come home, turn that car around Sunday morning, and then race Ascot on Sunday. And we probably did that in 86, 87, quite a few weekends where we were running 3 times a week.
Right.
And that, and the thing is, when you're running 3 times a week and other people are running once, it's just a huge advantage because you just see much more stuff and you're able to do more because you've seen more and you're just more tuned in mechanically. And, at the time David Montoya was my wrench, and, he'd be back over in the house at, 8:30, 9 o'clock the next morning, and we just turn it around and be ready to go. And, that was one of the reasons why we won them. I think because of him and, at Ventura specifically, we won so many races.
Well, Chris Vieira chimed in too. He's one of Chris's guys, right?
Yeah, he's a good wrench for Chris.
That's awesome. You and I talked a little bit this afternoon before the show, and you hit on something that I thought was super critical for some of the young people that might be tuning in. They might not be on here, but they may be listening. We talked about you said something to me about there's so much more to it than just being able to turn the wheel. There were some damn good drivers and whatever, but we got on that topic and you said there's so much. There's the mindset. There's your maintenance program. There's your preparation, all that stuff. I mean, kind of go into that and explain to everybody what your thoughts are on that.
I think, a lot of it is when you end up with someone that's going to help you to wrench, you're looking for someone that's got similar mindset, or even when you're driving for someone, you're hoping that you guys click, because that way there's just less drama and it's just easier to get things done. You get someone like, for me, whether it was David Montoya or early on with my dad, or later on with John Norman or Greg Schomburg later on at Tulsa. These guys could finish my sentence and they knew what my next move was, or if I wasn't sure, they could look me in the eye and they could bring me back to center on a lot of stuff. I can remember specifically with John and Greg many a times, especially at Tulsa, because it's such a stressful event, that he centered me back up really quickly. Like, hey, you're here. We're good. Let's just get back to what we need to do and let's take care of business. And off you go. I mean, it's super easy to fall off the cliff there. And when you have all that, when you figure out how important that is to have, at least one of those guys, it's crucial. It's super crucial. I mean, it's as important the motor or the chassis or any of that. I mean, without a Montoya or a Norman or my dad or a Schomburg, and there's no way. I mean, there's no way I'd be sitting here talking to you today. No way. I mean, it's critical to have that
chemistry.
That chemistry. And it's, you hear all the NASCAR guys talk about it. It's not a joke. It's just not. I mean, it's you can be best buds with a guy, but at the racetrack, it just might not fly. I mean, that's why things change, right? I mean, that's why it is the way it is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you might have 2 guys working on your car that, somebody gets butthurt or there's an ego or it just doesn't work. And you got to tell one of them, like, hey, I don't want you there. I mean, I can give you a perfect example, and it wasn't anything bad. This isn't anything really bad. I mean, like when I drove for Dominator Karts, and Doug Fleming was the engine builder, how ballsy is this? I would come to the race with a carburetor and a pipe, with the number ground off the pipe and a carburetor, and I would change the carburetor, change the pipe. We'd run all night, and we won the championship that year at Carlsbad in '88. And I'd take my carburetor off, and I'd take my pipe off, and I'd put the other stuff back on and go home after the race. driving for a manufacturer and an engine builder, and it just drove him fucking nuts because, he's like, "Can you just try?" And I'm like, "Look I just know I can win with these 2 parts. You don't know that you can win with my stuff." It was like, I'm just putting this on and we win. No one's going to know the difference at that point. So, but Doug was a fantastic engine builder. He won a Duffy and Duel, and I think it was '84 back there. Fantastic engine builder, super nice guy still. Built a lot of good shit and won a lot of races. So yeah, I'm not ragging on him. I just like, just kind of like my mode at the time. Like,
right.
And Monty was right there. Like, we had spare throttle cables with us when we showed up, and because the car was ready to go when I got there, but we just, okay, well, it's not that ready because we're going to put our carburetor in our pipe on, and it worked.
He said, "How ballsy is this?" I love it. Well, that is the other thing that I miss is, you tell me, how many times would you'd be somewhere and you'd go to look at the gear and somebody had ground off the number, or they'd have tape over it, or they would take the sidewall of the tire and dust off whatever it was. I mean, to me, those are the little mind games that, I don't know. Maybe they do that today. Maybe not. I mean, with all the rules and everything, they can't do a whole lot. But to me, that was half. I mean, that was half of the battle, was the mental part of it.
I mean, everybody not everybody did it, but I mean, there was times when I was driving for Burris. I mean, I had tires that had different numbers on the tires, and or you just took a groove iron and just got rid of it so people couldn't see. Yeah, I mean, once the prep thing came along, you don't even know what's on the person's car anyway, unless you get the date code and pull all that stuff up, which, it is what it is. But I think the importance of, working on the car is a little bit lost versus just working on tires.
I agree. I would agree 100%.
I mean, if I was to go racing now, I mean, I would need to have somebody that's like current on tires, because I'm not. So, and I don't want to get into that right now. So there's no reason for me to even, Chris Vieira, what was the magical pipe? There was a lot of them, buddy. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it was just a different time, it was a lot. It was a great era. I guess that's the thing that, Kurt and I talked a little bit about today. It was just a great era to get to do that, because you were just so many guys that were fast, up and down this coast. I'm not even talking about the Northern California stuff. I mean, there was a bunch of guys out of there, Randy Hannigan and a bunch of other guys, that ran up in the NorCal they had their own, that was their own scene up there. That was pretty dope at Balin's.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think is, I was kind of looking back through a bunch of stuff the other day, trying to get some notes together for tonight, was I was looking at different engine builders, and one of the ones that came to mind that, like, anytime I went to the Midwest, it didn't matter what year, was Larry Killam. That dude, I mean, if you ever think that he would come up to me, like, he would play the old farmer thing with me from the day that I met him in '83. And, that guy literally scared the shit out of me for years, because he made big power. He always had good guys driving and stuff. And there wasn't a time that went by that was like anything that he had out there. You knew that the stuff was good. Wasn't going to fall apart. Wasn't going to blow up. Larry's stuff was super, super solid. And, when you beat his stuff, he was always one of the first ones to the scales. Now, whether it was me beating Jamie or Jamie beating me, I mean, we always shook hands afterwards. And that was, even if there was some bumping and grinding that went on, it was like, it was always very respectful. I would say 99% of the time. And the guy just made big power. I mean, everybody knows about Kermit and Kermit stuff, but Larry, for guys on the West Coast, he was, I mean, that purple fin should put a little bit of fear in you, because it's going to run really good.
Wow, that's awesome. And that, there's so many, there was probably a lot of it, like, I look back and I say, I listen to you talk and I go, man, but yet on the Speedway side, you don't hear anything about Gary Hartman, right?
No,
who was one of the best engine builders around, one of the smartest guys ever, but yet you never hear that his stuff was anything on the Speedway side.
No, I mean, honestly, all the way back, if there was any Hartman stuff out there and it ran good, I got to be honest. I mean, it's not that I don't have any recollection of someone saying, wow, that Hartman motor won at the dunes, or, it did this or did that. I mean, Pittenger stuff was always really stout at the dunes and in the early days. And then once we started getting into, early 80s and some of that other stuff, I just never heard about it. I will say one of the guys that was probably one of the best engine builders I ever used, and it was only for a very short period of time, was Doug Henline. And every engine builder out there should be damn glad that he never went into the business building engines, because his stuff was always a rocket. I mean, a rocket. But he didn't build engines for anybody. He only built stuff for people that raced for him. Another guy that early on his stuff was really good in the late 70s, early 80s was, and he was kind of king at the time in SoCal, was Walt Myers. I mean, Walt did a lot of stuff for my dad that really, really, Walt was on top of the game. He was pretty dominant at Adams on the pavement, and he was taking care of my dad at the time with the Siamese twin and some 100 Open stuff before that. And kind of a cool story, a little bit about my old man, is they used to race at Corona Raceway for couple 3 years. Wasn't very long. And Corona was kind of an odd shape. It was kind of shaped like a cone, and big long corner, and Talladega at one end and really sharp at the other end. And for whatever reason, Pops decided he was going to go race Yamaha. They were having this 3-race money race thing, and it paid like $500 or $750 each to win these things. And anyway, he decides he's going to go race Yamaha. I don't think he'd ever even raced Yamaha to this point. Anyway, puts the Yamaha thing together to go race these big money races at Corona, and absolutely puts an ass whipping on these guys in the Yamaha class. And 2 of the 3, I think he won two of the rounds and got second. The other ended up winning the championship for this pro series. And he never went back and did it again. He just hated racing Yamahas. He always liked the open stuff of the duels. And he did this, and he was super fast and had some really good luck through those 3 races. But then after that, it was like, I just don't want to do it. And it was kind of funny, because Walt built this really killer Yamaha for him, and he was super fast. And there was a lot of guys that were I remember one of the races, he kind of had to do a little rub, and was racing to get to the front. And I don't remember if it was Boley or somebody. And I just remember there being a little dust up at the scales at Corona one night before he had to head into tech or collect the check. I mean, but anyway, it was kind of funny.
That's awesome, man. Well, what about Pete Gresh says, I miss Billy Macedo.
Yeah, I haven't, I guess Billy went and did that SoCal race and a couple of, last year, the one that Chris's son, Joe won. And Billy drove for me for a couple, 3 years, did a good job. We got a couple Duffys at Albuquerque in the Yamaha Limited classes. And then he won 2 in Spokane driving my stuff. He did a good job, and he was fast back in the day at Hanford too. He didn't win any Duffys back then, but he was always in the hunt. I mean, and you went to go run Superstock in Central California, you were going to have to contend with Billy Macedo, and at the Holiday Classic too.
Well, Chris Vieira said, did he say Corona? LOL.
Yeah, Corona.
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what, Gibber? So I got to ask you. I got 2 questions.
Yeah.
We got about 7 minutes left tonight, and we're gonna and if we got to do part 2, man, I'm down. I mean, we probably didn't cover.
This went pretty quick. No, this went pretty quick. I'm like looking at notes, like I haven't talked about.
Don't even say it. Don't even say it. We're gonna finish this up next week. We'll have part 3 with Jason next week. But so the drillers. And okay, so I know, I mean, and you can be honest. I mean, it's just, what do you think of the BK?
I think the BK is a big deal. I think that Ronnie's done a great job putting the race on, and getting everybody to try to come out and do that. It's nice that there's a race on this side of the country that's a staple now.
Because it is a staple, isn't it, Jason? I mean,
It is.
If you win that, you've won something pretty damn big.
Without a doubt. I mean, you'd probably never hear this out of my mouth as long as I was driving week in and week out. I mean, I'm pretty proud of getting a second and third. I've only tried to do the race twice. It's not easy. And the guys that are out there doing it week in and week out, or that are pretty dialed into what's going on today, I mean, it's no joke. Stansberry, Berg and Diotti, and I'm going to miss somebody, Renee. I mean, everybody that's doing that shit that's running up front, it's the real deal. I mean, there's, we had some good runs with my brother. We got a second to Wayne that one year. But Phelps was good. I mean, it's a real race. I mean, don't kid yourself. I mean, the guys from the East Coast have come out here, and it hasn't been like some simple just come in here and take the money. I mean, that hasn't happened. They've run good, but it isn't like it's automatic.
Absolutely. So. That's one of the things I say, for years. I mean, I will say though, I went back to Florida this year. I got, thanks to Renee and Shane, who have gotten me twice to places I probably would never go otherwise. So kudos to them for always thinking of me and helping me out. But, I went back there, and, I mean, I got to say, man, I mean, we got some tough Jose's back here. But, dude, it is a different breed of cat back there.
It's just different. I mean, there's just more I mean, even in the heyday, there was more guys in the Midwest. There's more guys in the East. I mean, when it was blowing up here, we were kind of on par, but then it's just not as big on the West Coast anymore. I mean, to me though, I'd have to say of all the racing I did, if you want to talk about an event that to me meant the most, once you go and do it and you're like done and you realize, what the event's about is like, the Tulsa Shootout to me was always one of the best races. I mean, it was tough. You're on even ground. No one's it's not like somebody's homey track. They build that thing every year. Yeah, it's the same pile of dirt, but it's not like they've done something different with the track prep. And, things are way different and the locals have an advantage. You had to go there and everybody was start at ground zero. And those were, to me, some of the most prized events that I got to participate in, and fortunately we did pretty well. Probably one of my favorite ones was the last one there, driving for Rick Sullivan in 2005 with Kevin Berkey 131 PCR. I mean, that was a blast.
Was that a running motor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, Rick Sullivan had to buy an airplane ticket for both the engines and fly them over to get them here in time so Kevin could build them. I had to build all the intake manifolds and the headers and everything from scratch because I didn't have anything for those motors because the reed cage is like medium size. And yeah, the thing was a rocket and it was good. And, Rick's he was probably the best car owner I ever had. He didn't pinch any corners and he did everything right for Ralph and I.
Does that race still exist?
No, it doesn't. They just race micro sprints there now. They don't race karts. But the cool thing is they still hang those banners up every year off the back of the grandstands. It says all the winners of the Tulsa Shootout from the first year back in 86 or 7, I think. And it's cool because people still ping me like, hey, I saw they're there for the mini sprint races. I'd say, I saw your name on this banner. What's that about? I'm like, people don't even know that you race karts because it's been so long ago. So it's kind of neat.
Well, why do you think that isn't anymore? I mean, that sounds like it was a hell of an event.
Well, it was, but the problem was the karters wanted the track circles one way and the mini sprint guys wanted it a different way. And so we wanted to get dry, for it to get dry, and those guys wanted it wet, and then it would get rough for us. I mean, so there was this battle back and forth, and Ammon Hahn just made it real clear. He said, okay, well, and once the entries, I mean, at one point in time, they were having 2A main events for like all the Briggs classes. They had so many cars, like 250 cars in one class. So they'd have 2A mains.
Jeez Louise, you're kidding me.
Yeah.
Wow. So he just said whoever's going to show up the most is going to get the racetrack they want?
Yeah, well, that's kind of where it got down to. The kart thing become a bit of a pain in the ass, and the turnout wasn't as good as it used to be. And so, I mean, you just got the kart thing off, and I mean, they're getting a zillion mini sprints, and I don't blame them. I mean, you can't.
Oh, no, I get it. So how many years did that go for the go-karts? How many years was that in existence?
I think 86 or 7 to 2007 or 8.
So that's a lot of time. And out of that time, how many of those did you win?
We won 5.
You
what?
98. You won 5 of those things?
Yeah, 1 in 98, 2 in 99. one in 2002, which I had an epic battle with Jamie Farrell and Yamaha in 2002. And then another one in Open in 2005, driving for Rick.
Jeez Louise. Dude, that's ridiculous, man. I mean, and how many karts were there?
A lot. A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah. That is crazy. So
probably one of the crazier things there one year is we put, right before the main event, I put bolted 5 unprepped 55 tires on the car to go out for the Open main event. And thing was loose as a goose for about 5 laps, and then it took off, and we were running laps close to half a second faster than the mini sprints at that point. And we just took the tires off, put them on the super stock car, and went and repeated the same thing in one super stock. And then when it came time for Yamaha, put the same 4 tires in the Yamaha car, and I got wrecked going into turn 1 and bent a spindle, so I was done. But we ended up with 2 out of 3 that year, which was really good on tires that were like 5 years old, but they were punching like almost 85s, and the track was so hard and so dry. No one had anything that hard, and it made all the difference in the world.
Pete Gresh says, purple-headed PCR, probably one of the best motors ever built for a kart. That's saying something.
Yeah. That was a fast hour.
Dude, it is, isn't it? Will you come back next week so we can finish it up?
I will. We can get into some details of some of the older stuff.
That would be cool, man. Hey.
This was fun.
Oh, dude, more than fun. Hey, everybody, if you like this, I want to say, please share this. We're going to continue to do this. The Loader and I kicked it around. Phil Fow and I kicked it around, and we said, hey, we want to do something for you guys special since we're all cooped up. Who knows? Maybe if we wear our masks, maybe we can get Gibb in here in the studio. I don't know. Maybe we'll see how it goes. We want to be proper, we want to be right, but I think it might be cool if we could get him live so he's on the camera. You're not just staring at me. But
one more thing before we.
Please go for it. Yeah.
I just want to say a big thanks, and I don't want to sound NASCAR on this, but my dad, my brother, Mike Manning, Doug Henline, the Burris family, Walt Myers, High Rev Engineering, Don White, Kermit Buller, Ralph Woodard, Kevin Berkey, Mike Collins, they all believed in me and gave me a chance and gave me the tools to do the job when I was racing. And I'm probably leaving a bunch of people out, but I can't thank them enough for believing in me as a kid that really wanted to go racing, and the guys that stuck with me all the way to the end. I by no means but I do this by myself, and it took a lot of help from a lot of people at times, and some late nights and all-nighters, and it's not something anybody that's been successful at something you don't do by yourself. And so I think you got to definitely give the credit to everybody. At some point in time, you stepped off and you got hooked up with somebody else, but there's a lot of guys. I mean, Kermit Bowler really pounded the tire thing into my head early on. I think that, Doug Henline with the really paying attention to the chassis stuff, Mike Collins' ability with tuning a Yamaha. I mean, it all just worked, I mean, those guys really, really made me better. And I'm very, very thankful for all the help through the years. I mean, there's a lot of guys there that are more than worthy, believe me.
Well, let me just say something before I end, and I don't want to get all mushy either, but Jason, let me just say one thing. Number one, thank you for your skill. Thank you for what you bring to the sport. Thank you for the, people don't give you that stuff unless you're worthy of it. So it just shows everybody what kind of guy you are and what kind of racer you were and probably still are. So, I mean, thanks for raising the bar everywhere you go. You make everybody better. I know we haven't known each other that long, but, dude, just know that I got nothing but the utmost love and respect for you till I'm gone.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So you'll be back next week, right?
Yeah, we can probably dive in a little bit of, some of the maybe we can get some of the Midwest guys to give me some more notes on some of the stuff that happened at Newton and Like I said, I didn't even get into anything that happened at Indian Dunes or some of the other.
Let's do it. We're going to be here next
places.
week. We're going to be here next week. Jason Gibb going to be our guest. Man, Caster Master, the Wizard, whatever you want to call him, he's going to be back next week. It's going to be a great show. You don't want to miss it. Gibber, thank you, man. I love you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. It's been fun. Really look forward to it today.
Yeah, man. Me too. I'm looking forward to next week already.
Right on. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Talk soon, man. Later. Jason Gibb, everybody. I want to thank Brian Thomas, Brian Williamson, Daryl Kelsel, Kurt Burris, all you guys, Montoya, Chris Gibb. You guys are amazing. We'll be back next week, 6 o'clock, same time, with Jason Gibb for part 3 of Karting History. Fal, thanks for tuning in, too. Good to see you on here. Everybody, man, it's just super cool. Jason Gibb, one whale of a racer, one whale of a guest. He'll be back with more next week. So I love you guys. Peace. If you're serious about racing, you're constantly looking for an edge. A tenth here, a pound there. It's a nonstop pursuit to find a quicker way around the racetrack. See High Performance believes to beat the racetrack, you must become the racetrack. And that is the thought process behind all of their innovative speed products. From their line of Superfly bodies and wings to the latest dual-disc center vane Super Brake, it's all about finding a quicker way around the racetrack. With 45 years of innovation, See High Performance is dedicated to helping racers of all skill levels find an edge. Whether it's horsepower tuning, chassis dialing, or tire science, it's our commitment to innovation that sets them apart from the rest. Innovation is not what is, it's always been about what can be. So be all you can be with the integrity, innovation, and inspiration of C High Performance. Shop online 24/7 at chighperformance.com. Well, another show in the books. You are the reason we're here. We hope you'll tune in next week for another Winning Wednesday here on the Northwest Race Report.
Lippy here. If you like tonight's show or any of our shows, please like and share on Facebook. And don't forget to stop by TerryBridgesRacing.com. Subscribe so you don't miss any of our shows.
What's up, race fans? This is the real deal, Chris Gibb, and you're listening to the Northwest Race Report.